took 5 years to get to our first $1 million a year revenue. It took 10 years to get to $10 million in revenue. And ultimately, over 20 years, we built a $100 million revenue business.
Right. You can make those kinds of identity shifts in a moment and then operate from that place. You can adopt the habits in a moment and then follow them consistently. I love that insight.
Sometimes the inflection point of staying in the game, you hit your big moment 3 days after you thought you were going to quit and you really thought you were going to quit.
Welcome to another episode of the Pick Now podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Munn. Today's guest, Mike Fata. Mike has been a founder of a business, Manitoba Harvest Hemp Foods, founded in 1998. Mike, is that right? So you had quite the journey to exit. You've had some bumps along the way that we will get into. Most recently, you wrote a book in 2023, 12 Unconventional Lessons for Becoming an Unstoppable Entrepreneur. Mike, welcome to the Pick Now podcast.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, 28 years as an entrepreneur. So I'm,
wow.
I'm a couple of years shy away from 3 decades, which is crazy to think about.
So was there a moment, as close as you can recall, where you woke up and discovered, oh, I'm not an employee, I'm an entrepreneur?
I always had the entrepreneurial mindset. Really growing up with a single mom and not enough money, I was always looking for the way to make something out of nothing in our life, make money. And that led me to work in construction when I was a teenager. I dropped out of high school and started working. And even in those kind of jobs, they were entrepreneurial in nature a lot of times because I was learning about all aspects of the job, customer service to sell the, we were doing carpentry or we did asphalt and concrete and then, the operations of the job and all the way through to sometimes collecting checks from the customers is kind of normal. And so that just developed into, even though I was working for someone, my entrepreneurial skills. And then I decided one day, I should just do my own thing. And that felt like the right path.
Yeah. And so that combination of kind of hunger from having a single mom and not a lot growing up. I mean, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs that I have talked to who that was part of the story. I was determined I was never going to have to worry about money like my parents did or my mom did or whatever.
And then survival instinct is a great motivator.
Yeah. And so what was the impetus then of that? You said, hey, why not do this on my own? What was the impetus of that? And what's the thing that...
Yeah, one of them was that the founder, the owner of the company, the construction company that I worked for, wasn't the nicest guy, or he was having troubles in his life that he pushed onto his business and the people that worked for him. And so I didn't enjoy that. I was making money. I was taking care of myself, saving and kind of building, and then thought, this guy's not really treating me well. I can go and do my own thing, which started out with the idea of construction because that's what I was in. It's just so happened that timing, I discovered health and got really interested in my weight loss journey in health, and that led me to hemp. And then I had the crazy business idea that all lined up for me, not going into a service-based business likely, because my brother and I even worked together. And he started his own and went into service-based, and he has a successful construction company. I fell in love with health and hemp and decided to start trying to make food products.
So tell us a little bit about the health journey and weight loss journey. And for those who don't know your story in that regard, go into a little detail there because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I wasn't educated about health when I was young, and because we were a low income family, it was a lot of cheap, low quality food, ultra processed foods, as we would call them nowadays, right? Which probably a lot of us ate some of, but it was a big part of our diet: mac and cheese, hot dogs, pizza pops, different things like that, and that led me to becoming really unhealthy up to the point where by the time I was 18 years old, I clocked the scales at over 300 pounds, 320 or something.
Wow.
And my health was really suffering. Not I was obese, but I was also not making healthy lifestyle choices, as you could imagine, outside of that. And so smoking cigarettes and just being a dumb teenager. And that sucked. It was my rock bottom. It was like a rock bottom for actually a while, months and months and
Uh-huh.
months. And one day I decided I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was going to do something about it. Thankfully, my older brother, who was a good mentor of mine, was already working out. He's 4 years older. He was already in the gym, and he's like, I'll take you to the
Hmm.
gym when you're ready." And so I had the moment of like, I'm ready. That was just the start of the journey. It was a long journey from there, but that was my rock bottom moment that kind of led to the next steps.
Do you remember like a specific moment where you decided you had enough? Is there like an image in your head or a specific memory?
The image in my head is actually, and there was many moments. So, like anything, like when I quit smoking cigarettes, it took me 18 times to quit in
Yeah.
over almost a year period. And so I think I remember looking in the mirror and holding my chin back, triple chin, and having this vision of what I would look like when I was fit and in shape. Which what I've learned since then, I was an 18-year-old kid. I just had this kind of moment, but what I've learned since then is that the best way to change is to
Uh-huh.
actually just be the change, not think
Yes.
that you want to or you're trying to. You are that, and that's been proven out. I can reflect back on that, but it's such a good strategy and thing to focus on changing the mindset, and then the
Hmm.
action can be more natural from that.
Right. Right. You can make those kinds of identity shifts in a moment and then operate from that place. And then, yeah, physically, obviously, you can't lose 100 pounds in a moment, but you can adopt the habits in a moment and then follow them
Yeah,
consistently. I love that
and
insight.
and
Yeah.
the, and words that we use matter, right? And so it's
Yeah.
instead of saying I want to be healthy,
Yeah.
I
I am
am I
healthy.
am I am healthy. So if I want to be healthy, I may try to do things, try to work out, try to make choices. When I am healthy, I could say, well, I don't eat that. I'm not eating that right now. I'm healthy minded for me.
Right.
Uh, of course, I go to the gym every day, even though I don't want to, because I'm healthy minded. Not
Yeah.
wanting to, but trying to be, and it's really powerful if you or your listeners haven't tried that. A little bit of a, people call it a mantra, or just framing it for yourself. Some of these things I've learned over different workshops and stuff I've done over the years, that print it out, have it on your desk, have it on your dresser. That
Yeah.
I still have multiple printouts from 20, 30 years ago that were big transition points in my life that are around me as reminders.
Yeah. There was a book, God, it's got to be 20 years ago now. It was one of the books that Jack Canfield wrote after all of the chicken soup books. And it was called like the success principles or something like that. And I
Hmm.
remember one of the things in there was the rule was, I'm going to get it as close to right as I can. It was like 99% is hard, 100% is a breeze. And it's that idea of like, I always do this or I never do this. And there's no waffle room. There's no negotiating that's actually easy. But if you say, well, 99% of the time I eat healthy, then you're constantly in this negotiation with yourself about, well, is this the night I'm going to have pizza or.
Yeah, that's generally why I don't like cheat days and cleanses, because
Yeah.
they play at the extreme opposite ends of that, and I've had my fair share of pendulum swing
Hmm.
back and forth, and learned that again, it's even, it's a Buddhist philosophy, right? Like, let yesterday die, be the
Yeah.
change today.
Yeah.
You can make those decisions, and I'm not saying that has nothing to do with being perfect, because life happens, but you can
Right.
always go to bed and let yesterday die, wake up in the morning and be the change of actions today that you put on a list and say, like, I am this is what I'm doing,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
more
And if
that
I
you,
didn't work out yesterday, it's okay. Right. Today's a new day. I'll work out today.
not even
Yeah.
okay, yesterday's dead, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
moment is right now, and you just, and again, people ask me all the time, like, how do you stay motivated over 30 years? Because I've not only lost the weight but kept it off, physically fit, doing all the things that could be distracting, running multiple businesses, being a full-time solo parent, raising two teenagers, like, but it's because it's just, I stick to the plan. Put it on a
Hmm.
calendar, time block it. It's important. It is me, and then
Yeah.
stick to the plan. on, and I see that as a good, simple process that everyone can follow if they're having trouble with inconsistency. Don't go pendulum swinging from trying to be, cheat days to cleanses, and put your
Yeah.
workouts and your healthy stuff on the calendar and just stick to the plan.
And it compounds. And it's compounded for almost 30 years now, right? For in your situation. I think that's
That's why I feel
yeah.
for when I lived in, even though it was life-changing moments from 18 to 21 that I lost the weight, in your 20s when I was like, I'm healthy.
Mm-hmm.
All Imagine all my friends and almost everyone I knew were like, what are you talking about? In your 20s, like people aren't thinking about that. When I
Right.
entered my 30s, all of a sudden we all started, little aches and pains, little not indestructible anymore, like in your 30s.
Right.
And
Right.
it's so interesting, what being involved in health was interesting. In the 40s, I'd even intensified, and I turned 50 in 90 days. And now people are like, oh my God, because if you haven't, but at this point in life, when you're 50, which is hopefully halfway through your life, but if you haven't
Right.
developed healthy lifestyle practices and done the reps of that, you're likely feeling, it's never too late, but you're likely feeling like, whoa, you're not even you're in the basement, you're below the
You dug yourself a hole. Yeah, exactly.
ground.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go back to 1998. Why hemp? Like what was it? You talked about the health journey, losing the weight, then you get into like hemp and harvest hemp foods and like
Yeah,
walk us through that.
the hemp journey was, the part of my health journey was understanding fats. And so
Uh-huh.
when I started to lose the weight, I went on a no fat diet, which was really popular in the mid 1990s. Dr. Nathan Pritikin and his materials are like eat no fat and you'll lose weight. And I learned the hard way about essential fatty acids and omega
Mm,
3 and omega 6, and thought that because I learned that there must be a number of other people, because fat free was everything at that time, and that
yeah.
things were going to change from the no fat diet to the right fat diet. And reading a book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill by Dr. Udo Erasmus helped that. And
Hmm.
then in his book, Udo listed as, hemp as the best source of essential fatty acids, along with flaxseed and other kind of omega 3 and omega 6 rich seeds. And quite simply, what happens if you don't get enough of them,
Hmm.
down the scale. And that had me, that, I was always interested in hemp, but that had me in a place where I was like, oh, this is a product that people are going to wake up to fats and then realize that
Uh-huh.
is a great source. It's good for their diet, which if it's good for their diet, it's good for their health, and it's good for their health, it's good for every aspect of their life. It was kind of
Right.
that thesis lived through my own learned experience, and got me started.
And so I don't think it's even widely known now, at least not in the circles that I'm operated in. And I'm not like an unhealthy guy, but I don't know. When I think of hemp, I don't necessarily think about it from a food perspective. So, like, did it take a while for you to get momentum around this idea that you could build a food company around hemp?
Yeah, yeah. I say the only thing being more strange than starting a hemp food company in 1998 was being a guy with a ponytail, doing it, because there was extra stigma, extra just negativity, mostly from a lack of education, because hemp and
Uh-huh.
marijuana are both in the cannabis family of plants, and people associated for a
Yeah.
number of years that they were the
Well, in
same thing.
CBD, like hemp and CBD, I'm in Colorado, so like hemp and CBD are kind of used interchangeably in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but the seed is one of the healthiest seeds, like other essential fatty acid rich seeds, like flaxseed,
Uh-huh.
like chia seed,
Yeah.
evening primrose, borage, like those essential fatty acid rich seeds. And it just so happens that hemp is the king or queen of that, and
Hmm.
it tastes the best out of any of those seeds. It has a nutty flavor that's kind of unlike a seed. It tastes more like like a pine nut, or maybe a sunflower seed. So there's a really rich nutty
Yeah.
flavor, and people enjoy it. So I fell in love with it first and was like, oh, I like this. I understand it now. It's good for my diet. It fits into my diet because you sprinkle it on salad, cereal, put it on your yogurt, like things that are kind of
Yeah.
healthy lifestyle diet focused. And it was as simple as that. But it took us a long time to prove success. Like our first year in business, we did $50,000 in sales.
Wow.
Took 5 years to get to our first $1 million a year revenue. It took 10 years to get to $10 million in revenue. And ultimately over 20 years, we built $100 million revenue business. But those first early years were just not only early for a new business and startup, but we were building a new industry because no one was
Uh-huh.
farming hemp before that in Canada or the U.S. No one,
Oh, okay.
no one was that was the first year that hemp became legal again in Canada. No one was manufacturing product. No one was talking about it at the brand level at Whole Foods or other key retailers like that. And so it was really the pioneering days of the category and industry.
So in those first years, how many times did you think, I'm not sure this is going to make it? And what kept you going?
Mm. I get that asked that a lot, and as I digest it, it's more. It happens so many times, too numerous to count.
Hmm.
365 days in a year. It's not only like how many times, but like how many times a day you run
Yeah.
up to an obstacle in a wall that you're like, one, this doesn't make any sense. Can't see the path forward, and we definitely don't have enough resources. But like I could go get a job somewhere and make more money than this, is what a lot of entrepreneurs face. And
Yeah.
I've learned that, and I'm a big proponent of this. I write it in my book and share my path. Like staying in the game in entrepreneurship is the most important thing. And the number
Hmm.
one way to do that when things feel impossible is a mantra I like which is just one more day. Go and
Yeah.
go get a good night's sleep, and hopefully you wake up in the morning and hydrate and do a little workout and eat something healthy too. But like as from a business standpoint, you all you need to do is to stay in the game. And sometimes the
Yeah.
inflection point of staying in the game, you hit your big moment 2 3 days, 3 months, 4 months, whatever the timeline is after you thought you were going to quit and you really thought you were going to quit. So
Yeah.
I encourage everyone, and that doesn't mean be not mindful and like what your business is up against. Like sometimes people get into bad business ideas. Sometimes it's a crazy idea, but it's just super bleeding edge, and then it has to go to
Uh-huh.
cutting edge, and then it has to go to normalize, or what we'd call like mainstream. And that can take we don't control especially from a product standpoint, how products like that are adopted necessarily.
Right. Well, and especially with what you were talking about, where you not only had to like, it wasn't just educating a market, you almost had to create a market. I mean, if
We're
you didn't
creating.
have
I
a
would say we
supply,
we
right?
you know, we say we yeah we weren't just marketing. We were having to educate, and right from the farm, right from the genetics of the
Yeah.
crop, all the way through to the through to the consumer, which is unusual. But I've know a bunch of other people in the health food industry that were doing similar with other commodities that were just as
Uh-huh.
weird. Like what I've come to learn is that in food, there's like 240 commonly eaten foods, in the matrix, and then
Okay.
everything outside that is generally weird. People don't eat it
Uh-huh.
on the regular basis, not in North America, and so like hemp would be one of those things, but like goji berries and acai was one of those kind of
Yeah.
products,
Yeah.
right? And they have to be mass educated and then adopted, and it's just not easy because people eat
Uh-huh.
oats and bananas and peanut butter and chocolate and blueberries, and there's like these just standard common foods that across the board, eggs and meat and this and that, right?
Uh-huh.
That makes it really tough to change consumers mindset and opinion.
What do you think equipped you to be that persistent for that many years?
Well, the biggest piece is that I transformed my life, right? And so this is why
Yeah.
I talk about, if you want to get somewhere in life general that you're not, like, focus on being your best self, whatever
Hmm.
that best version of you looks like. If that means that you need to get into, usually it's some combination of healthier physical shape,
Yeah.
doing some mental work, some therapy, mental work, maybe some emotional
Hmm.
healing, processing, and having some kind of faith on the spiritual side of things. But when you get yourself working as your best self, it's a lot easier than to go and do your best work. And your best
Mm.
work, whatever inspires you, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you have interest in, I believe it'll be more naturally aligned when you're being your best self. So be your best self, focus on being your best self, then you could do your best work, and then ultimately build your best community. Those three things is the way to ultimate success. So to answer your question, like after 3 years of starting a journey of being my best self, I was so inspired, and it just so happened that the best work that I wanted to do was champion hemp and learn all about it because it aligned with my personal interest and passion, and it aligned with a business opportunity. Like we actually had something. I just had to figure out what we had, and I never felt like I worked a day for most of that time. That has nothing to do with like, hey, I want to quit because I can't see an impossible future. But like, I was just getting
Right.
up every day, going like, let's get after it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's unusual in your situation is, when most people have that reckoning about their health, if they have a reckoning, a lot of people don't, but when they do, it's typically when they're more like 40 or 50, not when they're 18.
Yeah, yeah, the
And so
typical
you
decline.
you
That's
picked up
changed.
3 decades on people, right?
Yeah, that's changed. It's changed a lot, unfortunately, given that like 90% of people are metabolically unhealthy nowadays. If you
Yeah.
measure across the U.S. and Canada, are very similar in that, and that includes the youth, unfortunately. And so, what used to be
Hmm.
the and you can see videos of this. You're still in the generation, like where people were just healthy, and by the time they got to high school or beyond, like they're in like army shape nowadays, what you'd call like someone that
Yeah.
has to pass a test to go. The majority of people were like that, and then they declined over time until they hit their life expectancy. That's not the game now. You have obese children, diabetic children, and teens and 20s. Like it's and cancer and other metabolic symptoms. Like people are generally very unhealthy, and it's pushed right down in age, um, and I think it's that part's harder. Access information and resources and stuff is easier. So, but that's
Yeah,
what
it's
fires
an
me.
interesting thing, isn't it? That we have so much access to information and yet we're less healthy than ever.
Yeah, I have a theory. I mean, my thesis I think it's because one, ultra processed foods are at an all-time high of availability, and people are highly addicted to it, and they're highly addicted to
Yeah.
it because it gets marketed to them, which serves that doom scrolling aspect of like, yeah, there's access to information, but if you could have all the encyclopedias in the world, but if you don't know how to use them, and you're get they just weigh you down, which social media can be that for a lot of people. It's the marketing, and then they get sucked into that aspect of it, which is really unhealthy, instant gratification, and then they go and poison themselves generally with
Well, it's a different form of instant gratification, isn't it? I mean, in a way, and I hadn't really put this together until you just said it. Like junk food is like the doom scrolling of
Yeah, I look at that in all
nutrition,
aspects
right?
because listen, I was a food addict. I had severe eating disorder problems when I was a teenager, which led me to the 300 pounds. Right, it wasn't just the
Hmm.
kind of food; it was the volume of food, the habits of food, like all of that. And I've learned, like that's why I do so much work on myself, and how I choose to show up in the world is I call it standing in my light, like being in my best form, which is all the delayed gratification stuff. Instant
Right.
gratification is, like ultra processed foods and alcohol and drugs and doom scrolling and porn and gambling. Like
Yeah.
those are all identifiable. You're going into that for Instagram. I'm not saying never do that, because you can
Right.
enjoy those things without it being a problem.
Uh-huh.
But it is the drag into instant gratification. And when you focus on, or we focus on, delayed gratification things, like choosing to eat healthy, which doesn't matter in one day, but does matter over time, exercising
Hmm.
and working out, like bettering yourself, working on your skill or your trade or your craft. That's why it's so rewarding when you do that. So challenging
Right.
nowadays to do it, more challenging than ever, but
We have
like,
more temptations than ever, it seems like, especially on screens, right? I mean, we've all got a screen sitting right here that's just beckoning us to click on the next thing.
and we're living in a time, I tell my kids this, that it's unfortunately it's a time of screens their whole life, because look, we're working on a screen, and you have a double screen actually a lot of times
Yeah.
around. But that's just part of things. I think the best way to that I personally combat that, and I tell others to do it, is have one foot in nature, and the other foot in technology, which technology screens and kind of all technology stuff. The one foot in nature is the way that we can keep ourselves grounded, literally
Yeah.
grounded,
Yeah.
and
Exactly. There's a reason they
and
call it grounded, right? It is
yeah, yeah.
literally
If you
feet on
put
the
your feet,
ground.
if you
Yeah.
put your feet in grass or soil or sand or water, it's spending more time there, right? and going for those walks and forest bathing and like just having time outside is the anti-screen.
Yeah, just letting down your nervous system, right?
Hmm.
Instead of being all amped up in the sympathetic fight or flight, all the things, just like
Yeah.
and we think differently too when we get in that place.
Yeah. I
We
don't know if you've ever.
actually think differently. We want different things. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were we gonna say?
I was gonna, if you ever, the science behind grounding, where there's been a lot of
Mm.
work on actually grounding, right? Like why we ground our houses with a copper rod in the ground is part the electrical system to make sure that that works properly and there's less dangers there. But like, there's been a number of tests on plants and animals and humans that if you actually ground
Mm.
yourself, i.e., don't put rubber shoes on, but have your feet in the grass or in the sand or in the soil, or a plant versus in a pot versus in the soil, or a plant in a pot with a ground even wire, so it's
Oh,
ground,
interesting. Uh huh.
takes out a certain electrical frequency which they can measure and say here's the natural vibration of the body sitting in this environment in this state, and then if you take
Mm-hmm.
in and ground, that it takes away a certain frequency, so you're to your point of like thinking clear, having more energy, feeling different ways, different moods and stuff like that. There's a lot of measured science nowadays to it, and you can the book Grounded is a good one. I've had
Yeah.
grounding mats in my house so that when you're inside, and guess what? Like all the animals and children go and like run and just want to hang out and lay on the mat. You know what I mean? And I think
Oh,
there's like
wow.
instinct or intuitiveness there. It's not
Uh huh.
so yeah, wild stuff. One foot in nature, one foot in technology is a good way to not fall prey to all this instant gratification, because it's also a whole, when they all stack together.
Yeah,
Anyway,
definitely.
yeah,
So you had this journey from 1998 to 2019. I mean, that is longer than the classic. If an entrepreneur is going to have an exit, most of them are exiting before 21 years in, right? Like that takes a lot of, I imagine, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of grit, a lot of keeping going. You were talking about the compounding effect of the business. I imagine when you started building this thing, it wasn't with an eye to an exit. Did the exit part of it? I mean, there was a over $400 million sale in 2019. Did the exit part of it surprise you, or at what point did you think, "Hey, we could actually build this thing to sell it"?
yeah. Well, early on in the journey, we raise money. Like we started the business, three co-founders and I, with like $10,000 each. So
Uh huh.
what we were building as a business, we raised capital from friends and family first, and then some industry investors to kind of fund the business. Really scrappy over the first 10 years, but we had shareholders.
Uh
But
huh.
when we raised after year 10, when we were kind of a $10 million business, we raised some venture capital, and that venture capital had a timeline to their fund, which was like 7 years ish.
Yeah.
And so I was aware that at one point then, that we are going to one day sell the business. I didn't know how that looked. Fortunately for us, we sold the business twice actually. So in 2015, when we were about a $50 million company, our shareholders were saying, well, hey, is now a great time to look for the next opportunity for the business, which, so like that optionality, which could be a sale, but could be another partner, could be growth capital, could be all these things. It turned out to be the best deal for myself and the shareholders in the business was to partner with a private equity firm that bought majority of the business, but myself and a
Okay.
bunch of us stayed on, which then led to acquiring, and that was a $132 million transaction in 2015, which then led to 2016 acquiring our biggest competitor, because we had a $1 billion private equity
Uh huh. Yeah.
partner in a $42 million transaction, who was our competitor, but a good friend of mine, Sean Crew. And we merged the two businesses together. And then 3 years later, in 2019, we sold the entire company to a strategic, to Tilray, in the $419 million transaction.
Okay. So that's really your second bite is 2019. Your first bite's 2015. If you want
Yeah.
to think about, yeah. Okay. Okay, interesting. So I got to think you were talking about identity earlier, and you were talking about how you just kind of decide, I am this, and then you act as if you are that, and then that compounds over time. I got to think you were going through a lot of identity shifts in those
Constant,
20 years. Yeah.
constant.
Yeah. Can you identify any of them where it's like, oh, this is now I'm a this?
No, for sure. No, no. Well, the biggest one is I'm a born entrepreneur, right? We talked about how
Yeah.
my growing up as a kid really informed me as an entrepreneur, making something out of nothing. But I'm a made CEO, so the biggest transition was I'm $100 million CEO, and which now that governance and all that I've learned is what I bring into the world over the last 6 years since we sold the business, and now I'm a investor, advisor, growth coach, board chairman. Like that piece of it comes from becoming $100 million CEO. And so that's a
Hmm.
every day. But over that time, over the 20 years, I developed I developed new skills and habits to show up not only as a leader myself and what that meant to me from the 250 leadership books that I've written, the number of trainings that we did as an organization over the time, but also how my team responded and how we could actually go, especially in the busy years, from a $10 million business to a $20 million revenue business in 1 year, in 12 months.
Mm. Hmm.
And so a combination of that. But yeah, that's why I wrote a book called Growth and share my 12 habits and my and really lessons for how people could think about it, because it's a continuum. It's not,
Yeah.
if you can get really good at the thought of continuous improvement in your personal life, in your family life, in your business life, and in your
Yeah.
community, you're winning. And so it's all about
Hmm.
growth all the time, every day. And I become very mindful on not only what's my next step of growth still, and
Hmm.
constantly, but also helping other people see what their next step of growth is that's going to unlock what they actually want to do in their life or their business.
So I want to come back to that, and I do want to talk about the book, but I'm curious at 2019. So the business sells to the strategic. Did you have any requirements in like staying on for a particular period of time, or it was just clean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, day zero, the business sells. Day one, what's your state of mind? Like what kind of
I
shift
talk,
did you have to go through?
yeah, for sure. I talk openly about this because there's a grieving process that happens after you sell a business. I just so happen to get dealt a really strong hand that I decided to divorce my wife and become a co-parent to my children.
Mm.
And my mom passed away unexpectedly, all within 5 weeks of the sale. So what is
Oh my
normally like
gosh.
a grieving, like, oh, I can't show up at the business anymore, which I couldn't because I
Right.
wasn't welcome. I gave my swipe card and keys back, and I didn't have my kids every other week, and so I couldn't have my parent hat on, and I would never visit my mom again. So it really destroyed me, and I had a rock bottom second rock bottom of life after my 18-year-old 300-pound rock bottom. I have all of the resources and time in the world, but I can't do anything that I've grown accustomed to doing. And
Wow.
so I have to reinvent myself. And that took like 6 months of
How did you
true
go
grief.
about doing that?
I label it as monk mode, and I don't know if you're familiar, your listeners would be familiar, but you can Google it. Monk mode's an intense focus on yourself and a certain, in times of transition, like an intense focus. And so I called on all of my habits and discipline of being my best self that I really had for the last 20 years, and was focusing on my sleep and my nutrition and
Uh-huh.
my exercise and my meditation. I was going to therapy every week, grief counseling therapy, like all getting massage, like all the healthy pieces of like my body, my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self, showing up what's best there. And for a period of time, for like 3, 4, 5 months. And so like 6 months after that, I had clarity of, oh wow, I grieved my mom's death in a way that I felt like I honored it, and I didn't push it down, so it wasn't like part of me anymore. I had a
Mm-hmm.
rhythm of being a single parent, which ultimately became full-time single parent, but I had a rhythm there. And for the business, I thought, what am I going to do? And
Yeah.
out of it was I just want to be helpful to other people, which has led to now what everyone sees of me, right? Like I have a very
Mm-hmm.
engaged social media community. I wrote a
Mm-hmm.
book, talks. I have a portfolio of world-class companies. I coach entrepreneurs. And so, but it started with I just want to be helpful, so I'm going to have conversations with people in our entrepreneurs in our space and see what issue are they having, and can I lend some experience or a relationship or some kind of perspective to them. And I had thousands of those conversations in the first 2 years of transitioning, like going through the sale, the death, the divorce,
Uh-huh.
the grief, out the other side.
Yeah. Well, what I think is fascinating in all that, Mike, is the earlier engineering of your life, the healthy running the food company, like you're engineering a set of habits and mindsets that's purpose driven, right? You have a very clear mission in your life, and then that mission goes away, and the other things that are happening too, and you're kind of having to re-engineer yourself without a clear idea what you're re-engineering for, just like being open to these possibilities, and there's this general sense of I want to help, and then one by one that turns into, whether it's a speaking opportunity or the book or the advising and the investing or the whatever, it's still emerged in this really fascinating way. It almost reminds me of like the caterpillar going into the cocoon and like totally dissolving and then emerging as the butterfly. It doesn't know when it's going to go in, how it's going to come out. And it
Yeah,
seems like
no,
that's,
for sure. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Taking my, I knew I wanted to share my thought leadership. I wanted to be helpful for other people. I've been doing that over 20 years. That was a big gap,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I didn't want to operate a business because I'm a recovering entrepreneur. But I like being
Ah,
involved in business, so I like the strategy. I like the people. I like winning as a team when we create a new product and help, especially because in the health food business, we're changing people's lives. We're changing the industry. We're changing the planet, right? It's pretty feel good stuff
yeah.
compared to some forms of work, especially product kind of stuff. And so, but yeah, that's what's led to today. And I feel like what I'm doing now, I could do for the rest of my life.
Oh,
Maybe
that's
not at the same
awesome.
pace, maybe not the same pace as going right now because I like to build. So
Yeah.
I'm building a lot of things, and I'm a solopreneur building all that. But it feels good, and I know that it keeps me really standing in my light, which I'm building the long term value, long term satisfaction, delayed gratification, and having a blast.
Um, I haven't heard many entrepreneurs use the phrase recovering entrepreneur. I have seen
Yeah.
so many who they haven't, no, and I think you're onto something there, because I've seen so many who they have the exit, and then if they're if they're in their 40s, their 50s, they instinctively go right back in because they miss it, and they think, well, maybe if I do it bigger, do the next one, but do it bigger, that will satisfy me. Like they get the 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 craving, or the kind of the aspirational aspect of it, and the lack of satisfaction they got from the first exit. But it seems like you've got a little more self-awareness that's like, yeah, I don't want to do that again, but
Yeah.
I
Oh,
want to give back and I want to help.
yeah, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like the day that I left Manitoba Harvest, I invested in one of my almost literally to the day. I invested in my first portfolio company, went in and help. I was interim CEO for 4 months until I hired help the founder hire a new CEO and kind of go through all that. So I had little stints of that. I just knew that I didn't want to operate a company. But I hear you. I see it in my peer group all the time
Uh-huh.
of people that and there's a couple. I have a thoughts around why, because I went through it myself. I just kind of duck dodge
Yeah.
dived. It
Yeah,
was
like let's
is
talk about that.
Yeah, is it people, the persona of being a boss or a founder or a CEO of a business, especially when it's growing and you're having success with it. People use that as like as their persona. People say like, if you
Hmm.
Jeff, when people meet you, they say like, hey Jeff, what do you do? like who are you and what
Yeah,
are
it's
you
like
doing?
I founded blah blah blah, right? Or
Yeah,
I run blah blah blah. Or,
yeah.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
that entrepreneurs require that in some capacity, that identification for sure. And I believe, and I felt it a little bit myself, I believe the anchor and the opposite side of that for people that are wired for success in entrepreneurship is they're totally intimidated and maybe a little bit of afraid that they couldn't do it again, that they got lucky, or there's
Ah,
and that's, if you look at very driven entrepreneurs, they think they can, and they like can embody the like, hey, I am this, and so I need to find
mm-hmm.
that again if they sell. But they're totally still in a spot where they don't want to mess it up. They're not sure that they can do it, and there's something to prove there. It's
Yeah.
pretty powerful, actually.
Yeah, that idea of something to prove, I think it's a really powerful one, and I think it kind of leads us astray. It's like the people that I've seen make that transition the most successfully have been people who have allowed themselves to just create things because they enjoy creating them, not because it means anything about them as their value as a human being. And how you separate that is like really hard. We're
Yeah.
almost trained from young children. I know that your worth was how you performed in the world.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it is. You have to actually get to a place where you're mindful and you're not taking personally what other people are thinking about you. You're just showing up as your best self. Not easy,
Yeah,
but I mean, that's
yeah.
that's the way. Some of the exercises that I do that might be helpful for you or your listeners is I have I learn I call it the 4-point check-in. You usually
Uh
do
huh.
this on a daily basis as a regular part of when I meditate and just do some breathing exercises, but just checking in with myself in a quiet space of how I'm physically feeling. Like, is there, hey, I feel my ankle because I rolled it yesterday, or like, well, or
Yeah,
the body, there's stress and tension in my shoulders from the workout yesterday, or whatever it is. How am I physically feeling? How
yeah,
am I mentally feeling? And tell you, some of the rhythm there is like, oh, it's tax season, so I'm occupied knowing that there's like multi weeks of work to go through, whatever it is, right? Like that's mentally playing over and over in my head. What am I
right.
emotionally feeling? Like, am I happy? Am I sad? And identifying those words on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis help me be more mindful and like separate the noise that when you feel a certain thing and the mind starts racing around it, that can be really confusing in life in general, but in business, and kind of things that are
Oh yeah,
emotionally charged and mentally a riddle that's being trying to solve. And then if we don't show up as our best self physically there, it's you're having a train wreck, actually, for your
yeah.
pillars of health. And
Let
to straighten that out, like, tune into yourself.
Let's get into the book a little bit and what you think. What are the 4 or 5 key things that you think a reader, whether they're a founder or they're just someone who trying to manage their life more effectively, like, first of all, what was the impetus of the book? And then, like, what are the main things that I assume these are things that you've learned yourself over the years that you try to apply in your life? Like, tell us what you've
Yeah,
learned.
yeah. I think there's 12 lessons in the book, but I kind of gave you the three biggest themes. We've talked about it, and we've
Yeah,
kind of went. So I'd maybe for the book, I'd wrap it back to what people would expect. I walk people through my journey of learning to be my best self, both my journey and some, so like a motivation and actionable insights that anyone can take, but for sure entrepreneurs can take to be their best self, how they show up, and,
yeah,
and what their best work is like, and some form
mm-hmm.
and fact to that of serving
Uh-huh.
others, being, how they can lead in that way. And then the community or give back portion of it. So
Yeah,
just
yeah,
and the reason that I did is because there's a lot of conventional self-help books and business books that are around traditional leadership, but I didn't see a lot of those books, and I've read 250 of them, that were
yeah,
my journey, right? Someone that didn't go to school, or dropped out of high school and became is more entrepreneurial than like business school side of business, and had
absolutely.
conventional path in life, didn't grow up maybe in a nuclear family, or and those are the story that's what I wanted to share in ways that entrepreneurs can better themselves and ultimately better their business.
Mm, that's fantastic. So what are you doing now? You said you're doing some speaking, some advising. Like what is your world like, Mike? What occupies your time? What occupies your headspace? What are you most passionate about?
Yeah, I'm living my best day ever, which is a process in the book that you, your readers,
Yeah.
listeners go through. It's really like understanding what your best day looks like and forming to that. So
Uh-huh.
I'm a good 2 to 3 hours a day, and usually first thing in the morning on my wellness, working out and sauna, meditation, breath work, exercises, massage, and stuff like wellness. And then
Yeah.
I like generally like 4 to 6 hours of deep work a day, and that
Uh,
work looks like managing a portfolio of companies, supporting those founders, advising companies on their growth, doing some hourly growth coaching, doing some public
uh-huh.
speaking events, selling
Uh-huh.
books, making content on social media, and doing podcast interviews like this, just because it fires me up. And
That's
then the rest
awesome.
of my day is spent around healthy food and love and fun time with my family and my friends. And I like to put that on repeat, generally 7 days a week. I don't have this thought of like running away from that, and I haven't for a long time. And so
Uh-huh.
I like some deep work every day, and the rest of the structure falls into that as well.
Um so for people who, I mean, I can think listening to your life and thinking, wow, I would love to be able to do that. For people who for whatever reason right now don't feel like they can do that, like maybe they're running a business and right now that business is consuming 10 to 12 hours a day, like how do they evolve from having the life that they have currently that is probably in fight or flight mode most of the time, everything looks like a crisis, to like, how do I step back from this? How do I get more clear, more present, more grounded? How do I move into this place where I can have this time for healthier habits and for my family and so on?
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote a companion guide, a workbook for Grow, the PDF. And
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
I'll send me a note after. I'll send it to you. So if your listeners, just send me a note on LinkedIn, say you listen to this podcast episode. I'll send you the exercise is the best day ever exercise. And to answer your question, it's like, what does it look like? And there's some questions that
Uh-huh.
drive the structure of the day, like how much rest do you need, and what kind of foods are going
Yeah.
to charge you up, and what kind of work do you want to do? And then you do an audit of where you are right now. You just spoke to some of it, right? Working 10, 12 hours
Right.
a day, depressed, maybe not in the best shape, not slept
Right.
or
Not
whatever.
exercise, self-medicating, what have you, right? Yeah.
And as soon as you have the current state and the future state that you want, then you can put an easy plan together to be able to get there. And that's the way. That's a governance model. That's a continuous improvement governance model. It works on ourself the same thing
Yeah.
as it works in a business setting and situation. But arguably, ourself is the most important part, because what I've learned, and I coach a lot of leaders to this, is you can get more work done when you're a highly effective human working 8 hours a day instead of 10 to 12, and then take an hour or 2 hours of that to your wellness and into overall, if that's an extra hour of sleep and a workout, an extra session, like that will make you a more effective leader and business
Yeah.
owner. It's just you have to step back to put that plan together and then
Yeah.
execute the change and plan, not just,
Yeah.
and we call that, right, working on the business instead of working in the
Right.
business. We all know that when
Right.
we're in the business and we have not enough hours in the day, we're getting hit on the head with the wave over and over again. You have to get out of that, put a plan together, and then be the change of the plan, step back into it, right? That's the
Yeah.
way to success. If not, you people, and unfortunately a lot of entrepreneurs can exist in that for a very long period of time and not have the most success or opportunity or enjoyment actually with their business and their life. So best day ever exercise audit, a little roadmap to get there, and everyone can do it, and
Yeah.
just hit me up with a PDF. I'm happy to share it, and hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. I'm going to close my window here because I hear my neighbor, and I hope the podcast viewers are not hearing that. But so one thing that I hear from people is, yeah, Jeff, I get that. I get that I need to spend less time doing this. I get that I'm like kind of in this disaster mode all the time, and I'm scared to let go of it. Like, I get that there are habits, whether it's exercise or meditation or even sleep, where if I if I nail that habit, I get more back from it than I spend on the habit. But the transition itself is scary. Like I've heard more than one person say to me, I'm afraid if I am more calm, I will lose my edge, or some version of that, right? It's like the fight or flight mode itself is almost addictive. Any thoughts on like, we'll try, here's one little thing you can try
Yeah.
just to like put your toe in the water on some of this stuff.
Sure. And yeah, the adrenaline's addictive, crack cocaine's
Yeah.
addictive. A lot of bad things are addictive, and then we don't notice when we're right in the middle of it. The
Yeah.
number one thing would be, if you're not already doing it, get 7 or 8 hours of sleep. If you're cutting off sleep,
Mm,
like, and you're back at 5 or 6 hours of sleep, you're not getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep. The number one thing I would tell you to do is do that, because it has the most profound impact on every aspect of the body, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, okay, I'm hoping that people are getting the like 7 hours, 8 hours of sleep. If that's the case, the first hour of your day, um, to set a simple health routine, so that you
Hmm.
start the day with the right charge, and that can be quite
Hmm.
simply like drink a couple big glasses of water so you're well hydrated, maybe with some electrolytes. Do a little bit of
Yeah.
like breath and calming work, and do some kind of exercise, whether that's like you go to the gym or you do like 100 squats and some push-ups or whatever it is, to get your like heart rate up and your muscles a little bit worked, is just going to
Yeah.
be so good for the rest of your day. So when I say nowadays I take 2 or 3 hours to do wellness, I have the 2 or 3 hours a day, but you better believe over the
Yeah.
20 years, it was some kind of version. If I had time and that was the weekend I would do
Uh-huh.
that 2 hour session both days. But if I was traveling and I have to get up on a flight in the 6 o'clock in the morning, or I'm staying at a
Right.
hotel, I have meetings all day, all the things that happen to us in business, I would do a 30-minute version of it, but I would do it, put it on your
Hmm.
calendar. The first hour of your day, or whatever time you can allot, put it on your calendar, time block it, and then
Yeah.
just show up and do that work. It's so much easier than if it's on a, I'll get to it if I have time, or it's at the end of the to-do list for some reason. Should be at the start of the day, should be on the calendar. I could have a whole episode with you on time blocking and how your listeners can be thinking about the proper governance cycle for their life and their business, because it's really about like understanding the things that are most important, and then doing those in the sequence
And
that
doing those
matter.
first, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because I think, I mean, you hit on something like, why do, and it's not just entrepreneurs who do this, but I think entrepreneurs are especially likely to fall for this, the idea of putting themselves last. Like, I've got all these things in the business, I've got all these people that I'm responsible for, whether it's employees or investors or board members or customers, and I've got to do all these things for them first, and they exhaust themselves in the process, and it's not sustainable.
No. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and we don't realize that we're getting into it by thinking in the best. And you think about it this way: back in the day, and this happens to men more than women in entrepreneurship. And you say, well, why does that happen? Well, look back in the day when men were the hunter gatherers, and you went out
Uh-huh.
and you were like, I'm going to go out and create success, and success is making sure that we have a meal, or making sure we have some warmth, or making sure we have something. You will sacrifice everything, and then when you get home, you rest and repair. You literally, at that time,
Right.
you'd have to, right? There's a
Right.
certain tendency of that in life, thinking that we can just sacrifice ourselves and then we'll catch up, you know.
Yeah.
But we don't live
Yeah.
in a world and a lifestyle nowadays that allows that to happen.
There's no catch up. Yeah.
Always connectivity. It's always on. People are like,
Yeah.
racing around to be able to do all the stuff that they need to do. It's just a different day. But I think that's why,
Right.
again, if you surveyed men entrepreneur, I bet you'd get it like 90%, like 9 out of 10 would be doing that. I know I'm not at my healthiest self, but I'll catch up to that at some point. And actually, the one that's super winning, that 10% that's winning, is the one that's
Uh-huh.
like reprioritized, and they are focused on being their best self, and just what their business is doing awesome. Like it's kind
Well,
of
and
crazy.
it's the sustainability aspect of it too, right? Those 10% have created an outlook, a perspective, a routine, what have you, that not only is sustainable over time, but it actually helps them grow over time as leaders, as people, energetically, the whole thing, right? Where the other, who knows what the right percentages are, Mike, but that majority are very likely to burn themselves out and have
Yeah, yeah.
some kind of
I'm
crisis, right?
from experience. I've went through it, and I've allowed myself to get burnt out. There was a time through the period that I thought, hey, maybe I'm some kind of super CEO. I can sleep like 5 hours a night because I'm feeling
Yeah.
good. Because I'm optimizing everything else in my health, and I was doing a lot of things to optimize my health, diet,
Uh-huh.
nutrition, but all the other pieces.
Yeah.
But so I thought, oh, I can sacrifice the sleep to get more done, have more hours in the day. But I've learned it's just not only it's not sustainable, and you are gonna it's a diminishing law of return and pretty quick,
Right.
but
Right.
sleep is actually the number one. That's why I said to you when you said you could do one thing, because I've learned like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
have to be sharp, to solve problems faster, to be functional, to be well, so you don't get yourself sick. All of those things
Right.
like sleep's number one, right? But even I got to a place over like a year and a half, 2 years when the business was just when a business is growing $10 million a year, like it's like you're flying from a flagpole every minute of every day for the year, and so sure, cut a little sleep out because that'll be good, and then and things people don't realize from a burnout standpoint is it's a slippery slope, but it's a light bulb switch moment. It's a switch. It goes like people don't notice. They say, "Hey, I'm a little bit, I'm not feeling great," and all of a sudden, like, boom, I can't handle stress
Boom.
anymore. You
Yeah.
snap something, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, a lot of times that can go along with illness or disease because we're human
Yeah.
beings in this body that needs to be protected, and then it's
Maintained. Yeah.
right, because at the end
Yeah.
of the day,
All right.
when we're healthy, we could focus on 1,000 things, and if we're not healthy, we can only focus on one thing: our health.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And I think the thing that people miss about sleep too is a lot of times you get a good night's sleep and the problem that you thought you had, actually you see it from a different perspective. You see an insight that you didn't see before you had a good night's sleep. Like sleep is actually productive time in a lot of ways as well as being restorative time.
yeah. Yeah, it was a great conversation, Jeff. I think for the listeners, when we get to the end of the episode, just we're talking about some of that. If they rewound and they listen to the beginning again, because I went
Yeah.
deep into some pieces that I think make a lot more sense at the end of the conversation. But yeah, thanks for pulling
Yeah,
that out of
absolutely.
and
And
together
any
on it.
any
I think, yeah.
any additional words of wisdom that you want to leave people with, or how should they reach out to you if they want to hear more,
Yeah,
or have you speak in an
sure.
event?
I'm on LinkedIn. Have a very large engaged community on LinkedIn. So the best place to reach me is on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Tell me that you listened to the podcast episode. If you want the Grow Higher playbook, just let me know in that message, and I'll send the PDF out.
Awesome.
And yeah, engage with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Mike Fata, thank you for being a guest on the Pick Now podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, we've got more every week. Thank you for joining us. Take care.